So first of all, thanks everyone for joining this session. My name is Ashutosh, and I'll be walking you through this project management masterclass. As I mentioned in the advertisement, as I mentioned in the banner which went out, this is more for people who are handling projects, who are leading projects, who are in the journey of leveraging projects to basically make sure that their organization gets benefited, right? So I'm not going to specifically talk about any particular framework or a methodology here. I'm going to talk about what exactly has happened in the project management world, right? And how, as leaders, as professional leaders, we should be knowing about it, and we should be using it effectively in our day-to-day journey. You could be a PMP aspirant, which means you're planning to give this exam, project management professional certification, in next a few days or few months or few years. Or you could be actually be working in a project, right? Or you could be actually be working in a project and you would like to know more about it. So those could be the situations where this could be applicable. So it is going to be beneficial to either of the cases. Okay. And we all know from historical trends, we all know from historical data, this is the reality of project management, right? Most of the projects fail. They are successful only when professional project management practices are implemented. And one of the very vital reasons for project failure is budget overrun or budget overshooting. So that is one of the very, very vital reasons or reason why projects actually fail, right? And organizations which invest in project management practices, they waste 28% less money, or 28 times less money is what we have seen. Okay, so these are some of the interesting statistics, or these are some of the interesting numbers with which I would like to start this session with. Let me also talk about some of the critical challenges which the industry faces, right? I mean, we all know this, that 68% of the projects fail miserably. Okay, so when we say they fail miserably, what it says is that they don't meet the end. Okay, 17% of large IT projects are managed so badly that they threaten the very existence of the organization. Because obviously, if you fail in a project, it is not just you as a project manager which has failed, but even your organization gets a label, right? Even your organization is tagged that they could not execute this project well. Or should we really give the next project to this organization? Because if they have made a mess of one of the projects, how will they work on other project, right? So that also is the tag which comes within. And these are all coming from reputed, I would say, analysts, reputed research agencies. This data is coming. And 70% of the digital transformation engagements, they fall short of meeting the target. So these are some of the inherent challenges, or these are some of the inherent areas where, as a project manager, we need to focus on. Some of the reasons why this happens is because we are focused more on output rather than outcome. So there's a difference between output and outcome, what we need to understand. That is something which is very, very vital and very, very important here, right? So we focus more on output rather than on outcome. Do we really know the value? At the end of the day, the customer is more interested in value. And one fundamental mistake we make is we always try to equate value with dollars, rupees, or pounds, but that's not the case. Value has got multiple connotations to it, right? It is not just dollar, rupees, or GBP or pounds. What is there? There are multiple elements which are related to the value of the projects, or value, what we call it. Have we identified the right stakeholders? And last but not the least, are we communicating effectively? So these are, I would say, some of the very, very important elements, or some of the very, very important pointers, what we need to be aware of, or what we need to be aware when we are handling projects, right? And as I said, right, I mean, I'm going to talk about generic project management and what are the changes which have been brought down in the recent years, right? I mean, more so specifically from the PMI perspective. So on this note, let me introduce myself. My name is Ashutosh. I have around 25 plus years of experience in the industry. I have been coaching, mentoring, guiding, or training, whatever you call it, to project managers, project leaders, I would say delivery heads, delivery people. And I'm available on LinkedIn. Those of you who are on LinkedIn Live, you can connect with me. There's a QR code given, and you can connect with me. I also have my own YouTube channel called Agile Coaching and Transformation Leadership. We have almost 150 plus videos there. If you are interested, do connect on that, do subscribe to that channel. And you can watch more such videos which I have shot in the past. There are some shorter versions of the videos also, some mid-size videos also which are there, which will help you grow into your career. So that's about me. And let me then continue with what has been happening in the project management world. And as I said, this will definitely help for people who are going in for PMP certification. And even if you're not going in for PMP certification, that's absolutely fine, right? I mean, this is something which I feel is a change which is much needed. It was long overdue from PMI, and it will definitely help you in managing your projects. In case you're already a PMP certified professional, you should know what has changed from the last one to the current one. So one of the fundamental changes which has happened, and this is a slide which I have borrowed from PMBOK Guide 7th edition. So I put in the reference there. One of the fundamental changes which has happened in the way projects are executed, or what the PMI approach has been, is that they are moving from a knowledge-based, I would say, curriculum into more what we call it as project management principle based. So what the philosophy behind this is that, see, when we talk about a knowledge based curriculum, what they had was you had to learn what is scope management. You had to learn what is schedule management. You had to learn cost management. You had to understand what is a schedule baseline, cost baseline, scope baseline. Risk management. Does it mean that today when I study for a PMP certification, or if I'm a practicing project manager, I don't need to do that? No, that is not the case. What they are saying is that this is something which is bare minimum. This is something which is definitely required. We are not doing away with this. But what covers this are the principles. What distinguishes between a good and a great project manager is that how he or she can encapsulate or cover these knowledge areas by succinct application of the principles what are there. That is the fundamental change, or that is what has come out to be one of the biggest change which has happened, right? That how do you move ahead? How do you move from what we call it as just focusing yourself on activities like scope management, schedule, risk management, procurement management? Yes, that obviously is a technical element of project management. But how do you move from that? That is something you're still expected to do. But how do you move from that into more like a principle-based approach, right? How you are going to basically have a focus on the key project management principles. And that project management principles is that piece which is at the top, which is overarching, or which is looking at the knowledge areas at the bottom. Also, traditionally, we know that there was those 5 process groups which were there: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. Does it go? No. Again, the answer is no. It still stays in the traditional project management. Of course, in an agile project, the way it is going to work is different. We all know that, and I am not going into the details of that. But what has now also happened is there is a cover area for this also, and we call it as the performance domain. Yes, you are initiating a project, you are going to plan for a project, you are going to monitor and control, execute, monitor and control, and close. Nothing happens to PDCA. It still says stays the plan, do, check, and act cycle. But what has happened now is you now have performance domains. On what basis is the performance going to be evaluated? On the basis of stakeholders, team, which development approach you are following, traditional or agile? Are you applying tailoring approaches? How exactly are you doing planning? Are you talking about value-based delivery? Have you taken into account the uncertainty part of it? So that is something which also has transformed itself. It doesn't mean that the items on the left hand side in that orange box are gone. They are still there when you're studying for PMP certification, or they are still there when you're going to do the project. What is important now is, or rather if I put it in this way, that if as a project manager, I want to grow in my career or I want that promotion, it is not just doing things in the orange box which is going to suffice. What is also equally important is between two project managers, it's the blue color box which is going to decide who's a better project manager. So I hope that distinction is clear. I'm nowhere trying to say here that you're not going to do scope management, you're not going to do quality management, or you're not going to do resource management. That is a part and parcel of your life. As a project manager, that is our bread and butter job. But what is important is focus on the right hand side. Start focusing on the right hand side, because that is what is going to be a value based delivery, or that is what is going to decide whether you are a great project manager or you just remain a good project manager. So I hope that is clear. So it has clearly shifted from an output driven mode into an outcome driven mode, the one which I was talking earlier. It is talking about a vehicle or a system for value delivery. So whether it is a project, whether it is a program, whether it is a portfolio, at the end, it is talking about a collection of these from a value delivery perspective. So it needs to be having a value delivery is what we are going to give to the end users. And it is moved from knowledge areas to principle based, as I said. And then it has moved from a process focus to performance domain. It doesn't mean that the knowledge areas and the process focus has gone. That is assumed. That is something they say. It is assumed that you as an experienced project manager will be having that. But what is important is, have you cultivated the principle-based approach? Have you cultivated the performance domain approach? What is there? So that is something which is very, very vital and important, what we need to understand. Okay, so today's session, I'm primarily going to focus on basically the principle-based approach. Okay, and maybe sometime later I will talk about the performance domain approach. Right? I mean, it's a vast content. Okay, and I'm trying to put in the principle-driven approach in probably 35 to 40 minutes. So obviously, I'll not be going into much more detail. Each of these principles can actually be discussed for 1.5 hours. Just wanted to let you know. So when you go for your PMP certification program, in case you're planning to go for it, each of this principle would be covered for minimum 1.5 hours, if not more than that. So today I'm just going to squeeze all of them into a 35-40 minute capsule, just to give you an idea, just to give you an indication as to how exactly it is going to happen. Okay, so let us understand what is a principle-driven approach all about, and we will try to understand these principles as we go along, right? So the whole objective is that, are we delivering value? Are we delivering value to our customers or to our end users, right? Now, let us understand these 12 principles. So these are the 12 principles which are enshrined in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. I'm not reading it out to you, but they're very well crafted, very well obvious. Okay, and in any case, I'm going to cover all these 12 as we move along. So they're a little, I would say, on a statement basis, they have given these principles. Principles are nothing but actions what we need to take on the ground. What are the key things or key activities we should be taking on the ground in order to deliver a product, in order to deliver a service, or in order to deliver a result? Just wanted to let you all know the basic definition of a project remains the same. There's no change in that. A temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, a unique service, or a unique result. So that definition still remains the same as what we have it. Okay, so let us understand each of this principle from my lenses. What I have done is I have picked up the principles from the PMBOK guide, but I'll try to explain it in my own unique style. My own unique way is what I will try to explain each of these principles. So the first principle is be a diligent, respectful, and a caring steward. I think this principle, I would say, transforms the role of a project manager. If you look at traditionally, we have been talking about leaders being more like a authoritarian leader, right? We have been talking about leaders being more like a command and control leader. And this applies for both leaders as well as for team members. So I remember one of my co-team members when I was in my early days of my career used to say, why should I start a work if my project manager has not told me that this is what you are supposed to do on a Monday? So he or she was actually inclined to that command and control mode, what is there. But here we now see a fundamental change where the project manager is not supposed to be a kind of a controlling or an authoritarian or a, I would say, a command and control leader, but someone who's like a steward, someone who's there to guide the team, someone who's there to nurture the team, someone who's there to build the team. That is the role of a leader, what we see, right? And at the same time, the leader also, the project manager in this case, also has to make sure that non-compliances are handled, right? Any issues related to compliances, any issues with with regards to regulatory changes, they are handled with utmost care without impacting the reputation of the organization. So here, they expect the project manager to demonstrate a broad sense of coaching mindset, a broad set of a nurturing mindset, and also groom the team, right? You be that caretaker for the team. You being the project manager are that caretaker for the team, and you are nurturing the team and you are making them grow in their journey. I think that is one of the key philosophy, or that is one of the key principles which this is talking about. Be diligent, respectful, and a caring steward. They don't talk per se about servant leadership, but that is something which is imbibed in this statement. So if you go into this statement in detail, servant leadership is something which is coming in by default, right? I mean, they haven't mentioned it separately, but this is something which actually is coming in as a part of this statement or a principle, what it is there. So be a steward. You have to be a steward in order to ensure that your teams are nurtured, your teams are taken care of, and they use this project as a mechanism for learning, and you enable the learning for them so that you can take them to that next level of growth, what is there. Let's go to the second principle. Create a collaborative project team environment. Now, this is also very interesting principle, if you ask me. Many times we are stuck between two words, coordination and collaboration. This doesn't talk about coordination. This talks about collaboration. If you want to know the difference between these two terms, coordination and collaboration, there's a separate video which I have shot in detail, which tells what is the difference between coordination and collaboration. A little spoiler alert, coordination might solve the problem, but the problem might resurface again. But if you are working in a collaborative team environment, the problem is attacked to the core, and you eliminate the problem so that it does not come again, right? So how do we create a team? And again, by team, we just don't mean a group of individuals working together. It's about group of team members working together, aligned to the goal of the project, which in turn is aligned to the organization's goal of what is there, right? So does the team have a shared objective? Does the team have a team, I mean, do they respect each other? Do they have psychological safety? Do they have the necessary emotional intelligence amongst themselves? If not, what are we doing to build it as a leader? What are the skills which are there in the team? And again, I have videos on each one of them. If you want, you can watch them in detail about each of these things which I'm talking about: emotional intelligence, psychological safety, skillful teams. Do we have complementary skills, which means do we have that classic T-shaped skill model where I might be strong in one area and I might possess some additional skills in other areas? And are we ready to take along each other, as that picture exemplifies, right? Or are we leaving some team members behind in that journey towards building a team environment, right? I think those are some of the important elements, or those are some of the key elements which definitely play a very, very important role, or a very, very crucial role in building and fostering a collaborative team structure. So here we are trying to build a collaborative team structure as we move along the journey towards a self-organizing team. And we always say, right, I mean, over a period of time, my teams have to be self-organizing rather than I telling what work needs to be done. We are basically enabling a culture where the team themselves decide what work they will be working. We are fostering psychological safety, and we are building emotional intelligence in our teams. So that's principle number 2 for you. Okay, coming to principle number 3, effectively engage with stakeholders. Now, this is one of the important element in the life of a project manager, and many failed projects, from my experience, I can tell you, one of the fundamental reasons is not because we don't know the requirements. The fundamental reason is we don't know who are our stakeholders. Do we really know who is going to be impacted by the project? Because the definition, as you can see there, the definition of a stakeholder says that it's either an individual person like you and me, it's an entity, or it is an organization which is impacted by or can impact the project in a positive or negative manner. So remember, you can have negative stakeholders also in the project. And negative stakeholders, obviously, we know they do not want the project to succeed under any circumstances. So stakeholder identification, stakeholder engagement. So we don't manage stakeholders, we engage with our stakeholders. You cannot manage people. That is a fundamental belief we need to understand. We have to engage with our stakeholders. Do we really identify all the stakeholders in the project before it starts? Or later on, we realize that we missed a very crucial stakeholder, leading to a lot of challenges, leading to a lot of problems. Because remember one thing, if you fail to identify a crucial stakeholder in your project, later on it becomes very difficult, right? I mean, very difficult to accommodate what are the expectations of the stakeholder. And many times it results in a lot of challenges. Many times it results in a lot of issues, conflicts, and it results in cost overrun, budget overrun, or unnecessary delays in the project. So stakeholder engagement, again, the word is not management, it is engagement. Remember that. And especially from a PMP exam aspirant's perspective, the word is stakeholder engagement. How do we effectively engage with the stakeholders? The important step obviously is identify the stakeholders, classify them. There are a lot of tools available for classifying stakeholders, and then effectively engage with the stakeholders. So that is something what we need to understand. Moving ahead, principle number 4, focus on value. And as I said in the beginning, value is not just the dollar value. Value is what your project outcome is benefiting to the customer. So there's a tangible element to the value. There's an intangible element to the value. Tangible element is because this project got executed, my profits increased, or my earnings per share increased, or my stock price increased, or I captured a bigger piece of the real estate, because of which the valuation of that real estate has increased. That is a tangible element. There are a lot of intangible elements also which a project does, or intangible benefits, like goodwill, social recognition, right? You get basically you get publicity in the market, right? Oh, you have executed, or your company has executed so and so project. Patents, right? Research filings. All those things come in intangible element. Unfortunately, the intangible elements are neglected. Many times we see that we focus only on the tangible elements which a project is able to bring about, but there are a lot of intangible elements which also have to be quantified, which also have to be qualified as one of the success criteria for the project. So when we talk about a value, it can be a business value, it can be a social value. Like very recently in my town, in Pune, from where I come, they recently have inaugurated a new metro line, right? And this is connecting two extreme parts of the city. So more than the business value, it's the social value which it has done, right? It has connected two extreme parts of the city. It has enabled people to travel from one place to another place without basically using polluting vehicles. It has reduced that, it might reduce the traffic over a period of time. Of course, today it is not there, but over a period of time, the traffic might be reduced. So that is the social value, what it is bringing about, this particular project, more than the economic value or the business value, what is there. And of course, intellectual value, because you develop some R&D, you did some R&D, you develop some good product. It's an intellectual capital what you have gained, or an intellectual value what you have gained over a period of time. So that is what focuses on the value piece, or that is what is the value element, what we call it, right? So any the project manager has to focus on the value elements. In fact, this sheet, the tangible elements, intangible elements, is something which should be validated at the end of the project with your project objectives, with which you started the project, that have you really realized the value in both the quadrants, whether it is a tangible element as well as your intangible element, what is there. Okay, fifth one is systems thinking. Very interesting topic, one of my favorite topics. So recognize, evaluate, and respond to systems integration. And I think the picture exemplifies it, right? Many times we see in our project, right? You make a very small change in one of the components, it creates a havoc in the system. The entire system collapses and you have to roll back to an earlier version. Right? So systems thinking is all about thinking about the overall system, not just having a piecemeal approach, not just introducing a change, thinking that it will not impact, right? Or it will not basically impact this system in a way. But it is systems thinking is imagine that, okay, even if I want to introduce a small change, where exactly that change will have an impact, where all it could impact, right? Thinking about it. That is what comes in as a part of your systems thinking approach, what is there. So you have to really think about the entire end-to-end system, not just one piecemeal approach that, okay, let me introduce a change in this, nothing is going to happen. That won't happen, right? I mean, when you go for any other surgery, right? Whenever you go to a doctor for a surgery, there are a lot of questions asked, right? Like, do you have a blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? Do you have, are you suffering from hypertension? And you might be wondering, I mean, why are these questions asked for a basic surgery? The reason being that they have to consider the impact of this surgery on your entire body, right? So the same logic applies here, that whenever you're applying a change, don't just apply the change blindly. Think about its impact. Do a proper impact analysis, where all it could impact, what could be the positives, what could be the negatives, which could happen because of this change. So think about the holistic system rather than just having a piecemeal approach. Otherwise, it will be like a domino effect, as you can see in that picture, right? One slide tilts, it is going to collapse the entire structure of what is there. So that is also one of the key project management principles: recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions. Okay, number 6, demonstrate leadership behavior. So as a project manager, you are more like a leader than like I would say a manager, and it's all about demonstrating various leadership styles. So there is no one leadership style you will use in the project. What I have shown you here is a leadership matrix which talks about the different leadership styles which are there. It could be an autocratic leadership style, laissez-faire, servant leadership style, charismatic, command and control, micromanagement, bureaucratic, transformational. And I'm just picked in some important ones. These are not the only leadership styles, okay? I've just tried to pick in some of the important pieces in those styles which we normally use in our day-to-day role as a project manager. So leadership is all about demonstrating it. It's not just about talking about it. It's about demonstrating it. It's about exhibiting those behaviors. And at periodic intervals, also trying to revalidate your leadership style. I applied this leadership style in this situation. Was it a right choice? Or could I have done it in a better way? Should I have applied any other leadership style? So there's just a little guidance what is given here on the leadership heat map, as you can see, which leadership style works where, right? I mean, if you want to, so you can see on the y-axis, you have the delegation from low, medium, high. And on x-axis is what kind of a leader are you? Do you want to give low guidance, a medium guidance, or a high guidance? And accordingly, you have those leadership styles which are there. I personally believe there is no right or a wrong leadership style, or there is no one single leadership style which you can apply. For example, you can never tell me that, okay, in my entire project of, let's say, 150 days, I was a charismatic leader. No, sometimes I would have exhibited even transformational leadership style. Sometimes I could have become bureaucratic also, leadership style. Sometimes I could have exhibited a command and control leadership style. So it's not that, okay, one project, one leadership style. No, it's a array. It's a mix of leadership styles. What you pick up, you pick and choose, and then you apply it into your day-to-day life, right? This is also a problem we see. I mean, when we label political leaders with one leadership style. So without naming any political leaders here, we tend to label leaders with one particular style of leadership, right? Which is also not correct, because even they exhibit these leadership styles in their journey, what is there. So as a project manager, you have to demonstrate these leadership styles. You have to make sure that you need to evaluate which leadership style will work in which situation. And that's why it is always called as the situational leadership model. As a project manager, you have to decide, okay, probably this leadership style, let me try to operate here, and let me see how exactly this leadership style works in this situation. So it could be a trial and error situation, which you could be facing, or which you will have to experiment and then come out with your leadership style. Okay, 6 more principles, but I'll be a little faster now. Tailoring. I think this is something what we as project managers have to continuously do. Not every project is same. We know that. So whatever I'm telling, even these principles, we might have to tailor them. What is tailoring? Modifying your stance as per the requirement of the project, just to put it in a very, very simple manner. So so there might be a project which requires a lot of documents. Okay, and then there's another project where the expectation is that no, we just need lean documentation. We just need a leaner version or a thinner version of these documents. Obviously, you cannot exchange documents in these projects, right? Because in one project, it's a highly regulatory project. So you expect the client to have a detailed set of documents from a regulatory perspective. And in another project where it's a lean approach, where the client is not expecting too many big documents, you might want to have a leaner version of these documents. So that is what is called as tailoring, right? I mean, you customize it as per the unique special needs of the project, and make sure that at the end of the day, the stakeholders are happy with whatever you're giving, right? So tailoring can be applied on your governance process, tailoring can be applied on your process documentation, tailoring can be also applied on your execution strategy, right? In fact, this is a very interesting feedback I got. There were 2 parallel projects running, and I was handling both the projects. And when they did a 360-degree feedback, there were contrasting leadership styles found. Okay, something I'm taking you back to the previous one. So one project's team said that, you know what, Ashutosh is more like a charismatic leader. Okay, and another team member, another project team said, Ashutosh is more like he behaves very autocratic or a command and control leadership style. Same project running at the same time, same organization, but 2 different feedbacks, right? And obviously, I had tailored my leadership style. So tailoring can also be done on the leadership style. It can be done on documentation. It can be done on your governance. It can be done on your leadership style. It can be done on your project management approach, what you're choosing. So that is what comes under what we call it as the tailoring process. So as a project manager, you will have to tailor the process as per the unique needs, as per the unique requirements of the project. Okay, moving ahead. Quality built in. I think very important in today's world. Quality is obviously something we say it's an intrinsic part of any delivery. And this talks about quality baked in into your process, which means that whatever product or a deliverable comes out of your project, it has got quality in elements ingrained into it. And when we talk about quality, obviously there's a quality assurance, there's a quality control, one on the process side, one on the product side. It's not just about doing quality management practices or imbibing quality management practices or doing testing in your project. It is also about building a quality culture. I think that is where the project manager has to play a very, very crucial role. That how do you build a quality culture, which means that even if you're not there in the project tomorrow, quality is ingrained into the process. Right. So I was watching a very interesting video of the way Amul butter is being manufactured in the dairy in Anand, right? They have such stringent quality processes that each 500-gram butter block which comes out is weighing exactly 500 grams. not even a single gram less. This video is available on YouTube. You can watch it. So they have that processes set in, that it should not happen that even one consumer complains that I got 1 gram less butter, right? So that is about the quality culture. It's also about building quality centers, right? How do we imbibe quality in the organization is by creating quality centers, center of excellence. And of course, you have quality management methodologies like ISO, Lean Six Sigma, Kanban, I mean the Kaizen, CMMI. I mean, these are industry, some of them are industry specific methodologies, but the whole focus on project management has to be on ensuring that we are delivering a good quality product. And that's why they say bake quality into the process, right? Quality is baked in. That is a very famous statement by Mike Cohen, where he talks about quality management systems being ingrained into the process, right? That is what it talks about. So another interesting example, this time from Pune, and those of you from Pune, you know this, Chitale Sweets. Just see their video on the way they manufacture sweets today. There is no hand touch. And yet each of those sweets is of consistent size, it's of a consistent dimension. So whichever sweet you take, right, whether it is barfi, whether it is laddu, it is of a consistent shape and a consistent size. I mean, they have all mechanized it. It's all automation which is in place. So again, this is a video which is available on YouTube. Do go ahead and watch this video on baked in quality processes, how quality is ingrained into right from the point in time the raw materials enter into the factory till the point in time the finished goods is out and the product is ready to be delivered to the customer. So those are your built-in quality practices, or those are your built-in quality elements which are there. All right, moving ahead to principle number 9, navigate complexity. Now, this is something which we have seen in last few years. We have experienced it. Things are not straightforward, right? Things are always, it's always a curvy ball which is thrown to you, right? We saw what happened during COVID-19. We saw what happened during, I mean, the lockdowns, the multiple lockdowns, what we had to endure in order to make sure that we are not impacted by COVID-19, right? So that is what is called as navigate complexity, which means that as a project manager, you cannot expect straight balls. Okay, you will always get those curvy balls which are there, and you will have to handle those curvy balls. You will have to basically, I would say, deflect those curvy balls as they come up, right? So complexity is something which is ingrained. You cannot say that I'll get always a simple. In fact, gone are the days when you could get a simple project without any complexity, right? So you have to handle complexity. You have to handle changes, right? You cannot say, how can you give changes in the middle of the project? No, gone are those days. In fact, there were never those days. But whosoever had, I would say, who was lucky to go through those experiences, gone are those days, right? Where you can expect that whatever requirements the client gives, they are going to remain static. Many times some complexity nowadays is because of sudden change in the government policies, also regulations. Recently in India, we saw, right, there's a new law coming up, right? The entire law is going to be modified. I'm sure you would have read about it, right? So obviously this is going to impact all your e-governance systems which are there, right? And of course, we have models like VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, BANI, brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. So those are the models which exist. I actually have a separate video on this. I have a video on this which is available. So feel free to watch these videos on BANI and VUCA, where I talk about what is the difference between a BANI and a VUCA world, and how they are different. How is a BANI world different from a VUCA world? But it's not just an acronym. What I'm trying to tell is it is not just an acronym. It is more than an acronym, what we call it as the VUCA world and the BANI world, as we say, right? But yes, what the bigger message, what this slide is trying to tell here is that complexity is something which is bound to stay. Okay, it is not something which will go away just because COVID has, or rather, I should not say that COVID has gone. COVID is still there. But just because we have been able to conquer COVID, it doesn't mean that there no longer will be complex project. Complexity is something which is bound to be there. As a project manager, we have to learn to live with complexity. Changes can come in at any point in time is what we see here. Okay, the 10th principle is optimize risk resources. I think I need not talk much about it. You as a project manager would be already aware about it. Risk, as we know, is an uncertainty. We talk in terms of uncertain event or a condition which could impact the project. And there's something interesting, by the way. There's also a concept of a positive risk. I don't know how many of you know about it, but there's a concept called as positive risk. There might be some people who would be hearing this term for the first time, but risk can also be positive. Risk is not always a negative element. It can also have a positive connotation to it, right? So positive risk is called as opportunity. And of course, we have this risk register where all your risks are going to be captured. You have the risk assessment matrix, which will be there. So all these elements come in as a part of the risk management activities, which a project manager has to do. In fact, risk management is such an important topic that it has to be there in each and every team meeting. As a project manager, you should be talking about risk management. You should be discussing about risk management in your project team meetings which are there. So that is something which is very, very vital and important. In fact, a project manager in many instances is called as a risk manager because he or she has to handle risks in the project. Again, there is no project in this world where you say there is zero risks. That is not possible, right? There will be some risks. You as a project manager, how effectively you handle the risk makes you distinguish between a good to a great project manager. Okay. Principle number 11, embrace adaptability and resiliency. I think COVID-19 taught us to do this, right? That you cannot take things for granted. Resiliency is, can my organization bounce back? Right. And we have seen that, right? Many organizations which actually had a challenge during COVID suddenly have come back and bounced back. At the same time, many organizations who thrived during COVID are struggling today. So obviously there's a problem with resiliency in those organizations. So is organization adaptable to the situation around it? So as a project manager, do you have adaptability? Are you resilient enough? Right? So it is not just for an organization, even the project manager, the team has to accommodate this. The team has to be adaptable. The team has to be resilient, recover from any setbacks. You might get a client escalation, but how quickly do we recover from it? How quickly we handle that escalation and address the concerns of the client. I think those are the elements or those are the critical pointers what we need to understand from a resiliency perspective. You will get impediments, you will get roadblocks, you will get blockers in your journey, but how quickly can you resolve those impediments or blockers is what comes in as a part of your embrace adaptability and resiliency, what is there. Okay, this brings me to the last principle, which is enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. As a project manager, you have to visualize the future state. So you have to first understand where you are today, what is the as is state, and what is the to be state, and how you are going to take your team, how you are going to take your organization from a as is state to a to be state, right? So you need to have a roadmap, you need to have a journey map as to how you will take here, right? So first of all, you should be aware where exactly you would like to take them and where exactly the team is currently today, and what are the different practices, principles, or activities you need to do in order to take them from the current as is state to a to be state. So that is one of the key things, enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. So this is where the role of a project manager is that of a visionary. This is where the role of a project manager is that of a leader, what is there. Okay, so what I have done today, what I have tried to do today is just cover one element, and again, that too, when I say when I've tried to cover one element of the project management journey, that too I have tried to cover it in 45 minutes. As I said, each of these project management principles, what are there, right? Each of these principles are actually, I would say, a lesson in themselves, are basically a capsule in themselves, is what we need to understand. And yeah, that was my attempt just to cover these guiding principles of project management so that everyone understands in what journey they are going into. It's not just about certification. It's about the journey. It's about the journey in which you're soon going to enter as a project manager. And whether you decide to do PMP or not, believe me, this is something which is going to happen with you, whichever role you are in, right? You might not even be a project manager. You might be a coach, say an agile coach for that matter, right? But definitely this is something which I believe is going to come to you. This is something which is you are going to be impacted with sooner than later. And that was what my attempt was today, to walk you through this journey, or rather take you along through this journey of 12 principles, by explaining it through a relevant example. And these were the 12 principles what I talked about today. So before I mean, we'll take a couple of questions, but before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you would like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, feel free to connect here. Feel free to scan the QR codes. These QR codes are safe QR codes. They will take you to the relevant site, like my YouTube site, where you will see 150 plus videos. It will take you to my LinkedIn site. And if you are not connected, I'll be more than happy to be connected with all of you and take this journey forward. So I'm going to now pause the recording. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording, and we will now take any questions from people who are on the Zoom meeting. Okay, those of you who are on LinkedIn Live, you can type in the questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions which are there. So I'm just pausing the recording. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me for last almost 50 minutes. Really appreciate you spending time with me. So thanks a lot, and wishing you all the best in your journey forward. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Thanks.